Now you might be asking, what is this all about?
Yo, man.
Let me tell you a secret. If you want to go far in this game, you train. You do the work. You sweat. You grind.
It is a free-for-all. It burns everywhere.
Everything is changing.
Take a look at the results.
If you want to elevate your game, you train. Together. When we're in it together, the only way is through.
It's with great pleasure that I announce our partnership.
I think everyone's awake now. Morning, I'm Clare Coffey, and thank you for being here this morning. Bright and breezy, because I saw some people enjoyed themselves last night. And thank you to the Inspired team as well for putting on this great event. Hopefully that video has just given you a snapshot into some of the work that we're most proud to have delivered over the past 12 to 18 months. Some of it is award-winning, some of it's just pretty damn cool. And I think that that's a nice segue into why we all do the jobs that we do. You know, when you were at school, probably no one ever told you that the worlds of marketing and technology were available to you. But it's an industry that we've all embraced. It's the reason we're here today, because it's exciting. It helps us to grow our businesses. It helps us to establish our brands, to be known in the marketplace. But in today's day and age, our industry is called upon to do a whole lot more, because just growing and just having a great brand story is not enough anymore, as we all know, particularly because of the rapid change that we've seen over the past 3 years in particular. So the demands of brands are different. Consumers, society is asking us to deliver something different, to deliver impact, for change, for good. And we at WPP have a purpose, which is to use creativity to build better futures for our people, for our clients, for our communities, and for our planet. Tall order, right? Tall order. But it's really important because we do work with some of the biggest brands in the world, and you have the ability to change the world in which we are operating. And so we at WPP recognize that in order to work with brands who are doing good for the world, we ourselves need to change. We need to be the change that we want to see. And so today I'm going to introduce you to 3 of my colleagues who are employed by WPP to be protagonists for change, to shake us up, to say, why are you doing that? We need to do this, because if we do this, we'll then be able to lead the industry and lead the brands and the colleagues that we work with. So I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Stacie Graham, who's going to introduce herself far better than I can, to talk about the programs that she works on, and then pass over.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stacie. I have the pleasure of leading WPP's Racial Equity Program. I've been with WPP for 2 years now working on that. It's a global role where I have the opportunity to work with our agencies across the globe. I'll tell you a little bit more about that shortly. And I'm excited that This year is actually our third year of our initial 3-year initiative. And so we're using every opportunity to tell folks about what we've been doing, to get more people involved. And also, as we see a bit of the initial enthusiasm dwindle, to talk about what we can do to keep it going. Over to you, Perry.
My name is Perry. I am in charge of creative R&D for WPP, so I work for the CTO, and my role is how we're going to make work sort of 5 or 10 years into the future. So, you know, a lot of technological tools and creativity have been democratized. You can use them in your bedrooms, no problem. My role is to think about how do large companies differentiate from other large companies in their creative space. So that's kind of my thing. Yeah. Okay. So am I?
Yeah,
yeah,
you're in
okay.
control.
There's
you can
us.
do this.
Okay, so creative R&D, this is our little group. We're about sort of 15 people. We have like a sort of apprenticeship scheme. We've got a whole bunch of us sort of all sitting and making work. I'm an engineer. I actually campaign for senior people to keep creative skills as they move up organizations. So I still make stuff every single day. And you know, I kind of wanted to share some of the stuff we're doing around production. WPP is one of the largest production companies in the world. We make about 100,000 pieces of content. We're a truly massive business as a whole, but on a production level, we're on par with some of the largest studios in the world. You know, we've been thinking for the last few years about how we do that in a more sustainable way. But to be honest, this has also been forced on us, right? We simply can't go out like we used to with 100 people and you know, and trash these beautiful places around the world. And clients can't afford to send us there. So I'm not sure many of you have been booking $5 million shoots in the last few years. Those days are gone. I've sort of caught a glimpse of what people were doing on those, and I think I'm sorry that I've ruined the party, but you know, that is not happening anymore. There are only a handful of brands who can afford to act like that today. So, you know, what we do a lot of is digitize sets and locations, and then those are used over and over and over again, right? And one of these big challenges we have is, you know, is around localizing content. So I don't know how many of you here look after global brands, but, you know, we find great adverts in America and then everything else is pretty terrible. And so the systems we build, you know, are designed to use the same environments, you know, over prolonged periods of time in different channels. So I'm going to play this film for a couple of, you know, for about a minute and a half. And then we're going to walk in here with one of our bits of kit that we use for doing this. I'm just going to give you a quick heads up. That bit of kit is not something you want to get incredibly near. It's going to walk right where your boot is. So you may want to bring that in a little bit and round here. You will feel an overwhelming urge, I can tell you, to pull your phone out. That is absolutely fine. Just don't lean out in front of him. Okay, I'm going to...
Anyone scared?
All right, I'm going to play the film. Everybody look at the film.
Increased awareness of the damage caused by location filming has made it harder to shoot film around the world. Through the pioneering use of robotics and LiDAR scanning, Audi, WPP, and NVIDIA have opened up previously restricted environments for commercial advertising. Instead of transporting film crews and logistical support to these locations, we scan them for virtual production. A small team captures the location and a 3D model is constructed in NVIDIA Omniverse. By filming this model, personalized vehicles can drive down roads that would be impossible in the real world. Working in close partnership with NVIDIA, photorealistic vehicles and real-world physics are simulated in Omniverse, then rendered real-time in the cloud. As Audi moves into an electrified future, conservation and sustainability do not have to constrain imagination. Virtual production drives personalized media and e-commerce experiences, leading to greater brand equity and sales. We believe with the right creativity and technology, no road is impossible.
Okay. So, LiDAR is what makes that possible. All of you have got LiDAR on your phones now. Many of you got LiDAR on your phones, incredibly useful in self-driving cars. And we attach ours to this 40-kilo industrial robot. I'm just going to say that just out loud. Painted yellow and black for your safety.
What's he called, Perry?
His name is Spot. He was called Willow and was a girl, but then he ran into things continuously and we renamed him Spot, because he's very clearly a boy. He is a working dog. You can see his scuffs and scratches and everything else. His job is to go out on shoots with us where we have constrained kind of teams. We can take less than 10 people now to most national parks and these sorts of places. So it's just a handful of us. Kat is his handler, which we poached from NYU in New York. Kat, what's it like working with Spot?
So working with Spot is pretty incredible. So I come from a movement and technical background. What I really love about Spot is that Spot can dance, which is pretty exciting. So we're gonna do a little dance. So this is pretty unique for a robot. There's a few hundred of these out there. Most of them are working on mines or factories. They go around just making sure that everything's still working. If it's not, they report it to someone, and then the next day they do the same thing. So we like to joke that we have the only creative robot in the Boston Dynamics suite. And I think it's a really exciting opportunity for creatives to be working with this type of very polarizing technology. Most people are either very excited or horrified, which is a fair response. You know, more contemporary examples like Black Mirror, all the way back to the origination of the word robot, which comes from a Quebec play, which is very dystopian if you've read it. I think it gives us a really exciting opportunity to utilize robots in a more sustainable and creative way. So we're pretty excited.
So Spot taught him to do that little move, basically. Do you have the other dance on there?
Yeah, do you want to see the other one?
Well, he'll jump. I mean, we could try that.
All right.
Yay, well done, Spot. Spot was very expensive, so don't wonder if we broke him dancing. That would be really difficult to explain. Basically, you know, dancing is like the icing on the cake, really. I'm going to go for a few slides with what he sort of does. Oh, Kat, you're going to bring him that way. Let's get him out of the way, and I'll give you a few slides. Okay, here we go. He was six figures.
One more shot. All right. Good?
He'll go around you. Yeah, he'll go around you, he'll go upstairs. That's why he's having to, because he can feel people around him. He doesn't want to walk into anyone. He's quite a heavy thing. Yeah, he'll go around you, unless I'm showing that to people, in which case, for some reason, he doesn't. It's one of those things like a dinner you've cooked 1,000 times, and then you cook for someone. When I show people, he tends to bump into them. So, you know, just in terms of what he does, as I said, you know, a large number of companies go up in the air with drones to film these locations for shoots now. And if you watch feature films or you watch high-end shows on Netflix or Apple, this is what is happening, right? A team is going out, they're doing the scan, they're bringing the scan back, and that's being filmed, you know, turned into a 3D model and then filmed on these great big sort of LED volume stages. But for us, actually, the more interesting thing is for dynamic advertising. So we take these models and it just allows us to drive any car down the road. So, you know, if you've sort of been on the configurator or something like that, it's you know, it's kind of 2 days later you see the car. We call this the industrial metaverse as opposed to the sort of consumer metaverse. The consumer metaverse is very much about new ways you interact with stuff, so VR and augmented reality and these kind of things. The industrial metaverse is something actually you do to yourself as a large business, and the consumer is largely oblivious, right? They look at the ad and they go, I love that car, and you're like, we know you love that car. We know you've always bought that car. You know, it's a bit like that, right? And we do both, and we spend about 75% of our resources, which are not inconsiderate or unconsiderable, on industrial metaverse and enterprise technologies like this one. I mean, no one's ever going to know that their film was done by a robot. And about 25% we spend on more advanced sort of emerging technologies and this kind of thing. Spot is a deeply loved member of our team. The excitement we have when we get him out of the box is really sort of tangible. He will keep working past 41 degrees. Our humans all stop at 41 degrees, but Spot keeps filming. So it's been a really interesting kind of experience in the future of this type of work, right? And the future relationship with robots. He's also, and I've worked with technology for almost 15 years, the vast majority of technologies in any kind of space, let alone marketing, have been relatively invisible, right? You have about 1 trillion switches on your phone that you're completely oblivious to. We have machines the size of buses that orbit the Earth telling us where to go, but you don't see them. And I think for a long time, the technology industry has gone to great lengths to hide technology away from people, right? When you search for something in Google, the little thing that comes up, 44 billion searches in 0.3 seconds, but we are oblivious. We just remove it from our brains instantly. Spot is different. Spot is a childhood dream of the future brought to life, right? I mean, he's for work. He does this. But we've noticed still huge crowds. I mean, we took him to L'Oreal dressed as a reindeer delivering chocolate as a huge favour to one of our biggest clients. I was not dressed as a reindeer. I drew the line at that. And it caused a huge fuss. I mean, I was like, this is going to go one way or the other. But people were crowding around. A lot of people actually think it's quite cute, which is like a weird sort of dynamic. People crowding around. I went to Jaguar Land Rover. I expected they would have them. But no, same. Huge crowds, So I think people still have this deep childhood desire to see robots. We're living in a difficult world, right? I think we're a little bit emotionally burned out by the last 3 or 4 years. It's been pandemic, we've got all sorts of situations going on around the world. So I thought I would leave you my section on this image of my daughter who's 6 reading Spot a bedtime story, which she does fairly regularly. Spot lives in our house as an actual pet, right? And they don't know any different. They sort of, he's switched off, which is much safer in this scenario. But I think I look at this picture and I sort of think the world is going to be okay. So that's Perry and Spot and Cat. Yeah, sorry.
So now I have, to follow that, no less important, but perhaps a little more uncomfortable, the subject of our racial equity program, because of when we have to go back to the origin story, right? 3 years ago, no one likes to think about that time. We're all very happy to move on from it. But we were at the beginning of a global public health crisis. And then we had lost our freedom of movement. And then we were forced to watch a person be tortured to death in police custody. And that is where this comes from. Mark Reed, our CEO, understood the sense of urgency of the moment and made the statement, this is the moment to fight racial injustice and embrace change. And with that statement, WPP committed to anti-racism across 3 points. At that time, a call for change letter was written and signed by over 1,200 professionals in the industry, not only Black and other minority groups, but by over 1,200 professionals in the industry who said, these are the things that need to change now. And WPP said, we will take decisive action on all 12 points. The second was to use our voice as the largest advertising holding in the industry to advance racial equity. And the third was very specifically to invest $30 million over 3 years to advance racial equity. And I have the privilege of leading that $30 million commitment. When we talk about that commitment, we're really saying it's more than just an internal landscape that we're trying to change. It's not simply the low-hanging fruit of talent, recruitment, and retention, however important that is, but we have to do much more. If it were so easily solved, we would have done it by now. What we understand is we have a unique opportunity to leverage what we do best in order to transform the industry while also successfully and democratically, if you will, having a positive impact on wider parts of society. Because it's not enough if we, for example, were to change our own four walls, if you will. We do have 114,000 people in over 100 countries, so that would be making an impact. But it certainly wouldn't be enough if we think about the size of the world we live in and the power that we have with the work that we create, how we create it, and who's creating it. So when we talk about bold, audacious, and creative, we have over 18 projects already that have received funding through this program. I think, for better or for worse, people were probably surprised to learn that they wouldn't just receive a check and then off they go. I work very closely with all 18 project owners. These are large teams who are doing phenomenal work across a number of different areas, whether it's health, education, production, and so forth. And I am going to give a few examples. It's really important here, again, to emphasize this is global work. So it's not only limited to the US and the UK. Obviously, with my accent, people love to tell me that it's only about the US. In Europe, there's a notion that racism only exists in the US. As someone who's lived outside of the US for most of my life, I can guarantee that is not the case. But also, understanding the cultural idiosyncrasies of these different markets in which we move, right? Brazil has different needs, a country with 54% of the population identifying of African descent. And so that is where I'd like to make an example, one of our projects in Brazil called Somamas. And it's a phenomenal project where we have 3 steps, if you will, to it. The first being education. We're committed to reaching Black and Indigenous people outside of the 2 major metropolitan areas, obviously Sao Paulo and Rio. We're committed to finding people who are from the Northwest and the Northeast who have less opportunities. We've trained over 1,100 people so far who go through a 3-month digital program where they learn about different parts of the industries, whether it's account management, production, creative, or strategy. And then once they go through that, we've created a talent database, not for profiles, I should say, to go and die. Rather, we've engaged agencies both within WPP and outside of it who commit to inclusive practices in order to access that database. And because we want people to be hired, but we also want them to thrive once they're hired. And then AKQA, being a smaller agency, takes on 5 of those people who've gone through, it's a very hard selection process, I can tell you that, who've gone through the training, and then they go through a longer process within AKQA that culminates in what we call the legacy project or transformation. It's an institutional project. I had the opportunity to go to Sao Paulo to experience that culmination just recently, a few weeks ago, where they worked with Criollo, who is a rapper in Brazil. He's very famous, he's very popular. I got to meet him. I was immediately one of the cool kids. Every other meeting I had, I was told, what, you've been in Brazil two days and you've already met Criollo and Mano Brown? Yes, I have. So we created a fabulous music video. The video, the lyrics for the song speak very specifically to the lack of opportunities for Black people in Brazil to accumulate intergenerational wealth. And because, again, pretty things are not enough, they also created something that I'll get to in just a second, but just to give you a little teaser of what the video is like. So go to YouTube and watch it. It's great. And then we also created a financial literacy platform that people can access. It's a web app where people can learn more about their own history, about different opportunities available to them. There are discount codes so that they can access these things at a lower cost, because again, it's about impact. It's not just about creating pretty things. And I know that we're coming up to time, but I do want to briefly introduce you to one of our other projects called the Consumer Equality Equation Report, which was done with WPP, Ogilvy Consulting, and Group M, because I think a lot of time when we talk about racial equity, people see this as charitable donations. They see it as something that you do for moral reasons, which is important, but we also are clear that we won't always reach people because the goodness of their heart. So we also have to talk about what is the value of ignoring these populations. And with the Consumer Equality Equation report, we really looked at the consumer experience in the UK specifically, and what are those differences across 6 ethnic groups, including white British people, because sometimes people racialized as white forget that that's also an ethnic group. And what we found is that with original research from Kantar, we found that 86% of the UK population say that racism is a problem in the UK, and that's across all ethnic groups, that number. And then with Choreograph, we did some financial modeling that showed 16.7 trillion pounds is the projected cumulative disposable income of people from minority ethnic groups by 2061. And so even just adjusting the way you work by 1% to meet the needs of this population can have the impact in the billions. So I want you to take that with you, right? What are you perhaps missing by not recognizing the different needs of the different groups that we have here in the UK?